Hey career reporters, or if you're new here, welcome newbie. So the Teen Mom OG reunion aired this week, and it's a hybrid between OGs and Young and Pregnant. As predicted, listen, I knew before we had the previews that it was going to be like boring, but then they gave us a preview and it looked kind of good, but then they delivered a little boring, okay? So this is a recap of what happened this week. We started it off with Farrah kind of teasing the new therapy show that they're releasing, but they didn't give us an air date. So we have no idea what we're supposed to do with that information. And they didn't give us a proper trailer either. They just gave us some photos from the series. And I felt like that was kind of like lame, right? Like, where's my actual trailer? And when is this thing coming out so I can properly get excited about it? So after that, we get a one-on-one scene with Caitlyn and Tyler, and they are doing a lot better in their lives, but there's nothing really new and exciting and interesting to talk about there. Yes, they welcome baby Raya, but even that, we really didn't get to see the baby or anything like that to get all too excited. So after that, we get Cheyenne on the couch, and I felt like her point about Ryder being the only one of her siblings. There's Ryder, there's Mila, and there's baby Ace now. Mila is always with Corey and Taylor. She doesn't have to be shuttled around anywhere, and same thing for baby Ace. He's always with Cheyenne and Zach, but Ryder goes between the two families, and I never even really thought about that, right? Like from that kind of perspective, because in the show it's usually either just one kid has to do it or all the kids have to do it. They're all like being moved around constantly. So it's interesting to hear her talk about that and how she and Zach try to make Ryder, and Corey also try to make Ryder like understand the situation and still feel loved and special in all of the home amongst all of the parents. So Corey comes to join us on the couch, and he was very weird, like straight out of the gate. Like he did a line or something to hype himself up for the interview. Like his personality was very odd. Like it was way too on 100 when everyone else was like on level 7 or 8. You know, he and Cheyenne talk about Ryder's breakdowns and like her not wanting him to do the challenge. He says that he finally stopped doing the challenge because she cried in front of him, and like that really broke his heart. Apparently some people had been DMing Cheyenne, complaining about Corey going away for months on end to shoot the show, and you know, for a chance to win prize money, saying, listen, it's his job, it's what he's got to do. But at the same time, Corey is lucky enough that he's got such a big following that he doesn't need to do something like this. He can make as much, if not more money, on Instagram, on his Twitter, on his Facebook, on his YouTube, whatever it is that he's got going on. He could make that kind of money on another show. Like, he's good, right? Like, it's not a necessary thing. And if it's impacting his daughter to that extent, and he's not poor, he's not hurting for money, to me, I'm with Chai. Like, why does he have to do it? And at the end of the day, it's for a chance to win a certain amount of money, not for the certainty that he will get this amount of money. Yes, he gets paid to participate, but I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know how much those guys are paid to be on that show. Corey also says that he does want to have a bunch more kids with Taylor, and he low-key throws Taylor under the bus as being jealous of the progress that Cheyenne and Zach are making in their relationship. They're now engaged. They've got a dog. Like, he says that these are things that Taylor points out to put pressure on him to get the same thing. She wants to be engaged to Corey and married to Corey. I guess she wants to have a dog, and they of course want to have more kids as well. Corey says that all of that is going to arrive when the time is right. I wonder when that is, right? Like when you've already been living with each other for years, you've got a child together, she's helping co-parent your other child. When is the time going to be right if you guys are already kind of living the married life without being legally married? Cheyenne kind of talked about Ryder describing her, Zach proposing to her. You know, she thinks that they both got proposed to because she did get a replica of the ring, and he did do all of the same things for Ryder as well. And it was very cute. I'm kind of curious how that is for you guys who have kids and, like, you know, remarried after or married after having a kid, how your fiancés or your husbands incorporated the kids into your marriage proposal, if at all. Like, and what is it like for the male children? Do they just ask permission from the male children to marry the mom? I'm really curious. So next up, we got Maci, who is paired on the stage with Brianna from Young and Pregnant, where Maci is supposed to guide her on, you know, her relationship with her mom and her relationship with her lovers. And I felt like Maci was a liar, telling Brianna that she radiates intelligence and confidence, because no, she doesn't. To me, she radiates the exact opposite of both of those things, and that's why her life is the way that it is, and that's why people like Briggs or whatever his name is are able to prey on her. Stage 5 Ashley is able to prey on her for attention and, you know, exposure and whatnot. Brianna tells a story about Brayson, you know, telling her, my dad is big and strong and he's this amazing man, and it was really sad to me. I was like, wow, like this guy really is imagining up, you know, a father figure for himself because he doesn't have that, and that's going to be heartbreaking to see and know as a mom. And then she said that she asked him, well, who's your dad? And Brayson laughed and said, silly mom, I don't have a dad. And I was like, that's really sad, and it's also kind of haunting in certain respects, you know, like that made me really sad. In the next version of the hybrid, Caitlyn and Tyler returned to the stage to sit down with Rachel Beaver, who was kind enough to spare us a couple of minutes on her way to prom. And, you know, I thought that this was a pretty good pairing because Caitlyn and Tyler have lived through a lot of the same stuff that, you know, Rachel has lived through. So, you know, they definitely can give her a really good advice based on coming from a similar background. And Rachel kind of intimated that she and her mom used to do drugs together in their house or something like that. She said that they used to do mother-daughter stuff that she can't even mention on TV because parents shouldn't be doing that with children. And she talks about them partying together and stuff in the house. And I'm like, oh, that mom was totally doing drugs with her, and that is just disgusting on the mom's part. So Rachel seemed very mature, you guys. You know, she took full responsibility for the way that she speaks to her mom. She gives background on why it is that way and still says, listen, that's not an excuse. It's not acceptable for me to be speaking to my mom that way. And I was like, damn, like she really has grown. But at the same time, listen, like how would any of us expect to turn out if we, you know, grew up the way that Rachel grew up? She really was raised by wolves. I do have to say though that I was quite disappointed by the lack of guidance from Caitlyn and Tyler. Like they were very understanding to her and why she does things the way that she does and stuff, but they didn't really give her any guidance. Like they were just like, we get it and you don't have to apologize for it. And that was it, you know, like I would have liked to see them talk a little bit more about how to overcome it. And I'm so tired of this whole breaking the generational cycle buzzword that Rachel's of the world and Leah's of the world like to use without actually doing it. You know what I mean? Like they're still a mess. They're still bringing all these strange random men around their kids within weeks, right? So I don't like that, and I hate that they're never called out for it. And I also hated that we never brought up Rachel bringing that strange man around her child after like the second or third date, letting him cuddle with the child, letting him put the child to bed, letting her daughter call him daddy and stuff. Like how did this not come up at all at the reunion? It was a complete fail on everybody's end, especially Dr. Drew and Ness's end, because that was scary. That was alarming, and there should have been a PSA against that sort of parenting. Next up, Amber accuses her own daughter Leah of just parenting things that she sees online about Amber's fake tears and stuff, and there she is attacking her daughter as usual. But as usual, she's given a pass for that. No one calls her out for what it is that she's doing. And then Gary comes out, and Dr. Drew immediately starts lecturing him about learning about Amber's borderline personality disorder. And then, you know, Dr. Drew then kind of tells him, listen, Leah should be in therapy. She should be speaking to somebody. Gary's like, well, yeah, she is. And she's gone to 10 sessions. She's been doing this for a while. Like, you know, like he's very like harsh and like, you know, when it comes to speaking with the men, but with the women, they get off scot-free with everything. Just look what happened with Rachel, and notice that I don't have any notes about what he said constructive towards Amber in part 1, you know, in her initial segment here. You know, here's the thing that I kind of agree with Amber on. She was very upset that she did not know that Leah was seeing a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor or whatever until she was up there on that stage. I agree with both of them, Gary and Leah. Gary was right to not tell Amber until Leah was ready, but he was not right to tell her on stage like that because he's known this woman long enough. She's always looking for a moment, and Dr. Drew, she knows him well enough that Dr. Drew is always ready to hammer in on the dads and side with the moms. So he should have told her this off camera before getting up on that stage, because at the end of the day, they co-parent in real life. This is not just for a TV show. You don't wait for a TV show to tell something that big to a child's mother, right? So I see both of their sides here. Amber threw a little bit of a fit about it, and of course it just continued to snowball and escalate with Dr. Drew throwing some, what is it? So it's fanning the flames to the fire. So yeah. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. Like, Gary was right to not tell her until Leah was ready, but I'm sure Leah was ready to tell Amber maybe just before filming or the night before or something. It should not have happened on stage, because look what we get. Now, instead of talking about all of these, things about Leah and helping Leah and Gary and the stuff that he's been doing and the boundaries he's setting, Amber gets to have a diva moment. And I do have to ask, where was Dr. Drew's energy for Rachel when it came to her having that man around her child after like the third date, having him call her daddy and all of that stuff? Like, it's wild that he was ganging up on Gary with Amber, but he had no energy for what it was that Rachel was doing to literally endanger her child. So as usual, Amber gets a very dramatic exit from the show, and then she's talking to the producer. She's like cursing out the camera people and stuff. She's like yelling about it. She comes back and she tells Gary that his first class ticket next to her is canceled. Why is he sitting next to her in first class when he could be sitting next to his wife in another row in first class? This is weird. And the wife was there because Amber addresses her later. And then this is where it gets rich, pun intended. Amber goes, Gary, how are you making all of your money? Stop making all of your money off of me. That's ironic, Amber, because all of you grown-ass people are making your money off of Leah. 12, 13-year-old Leah is where all of you guys have gotten your money. So you can't act like Gary is making his money off you. He's doing the same thing you're doing, which is making money off of Leah's back, if we really want to get technical here. But then when she goes to talk to Christina, she's like, oh, you want to keep things from me, Christina? You don't want to be honest, blah, blah. Listen, I hate to say it, actually I don't, but I don't feel bad for Gary and Christina after the way that they victim blamed Andrew for Amber attacking him while he was holding their child. They really had a lot to say when someone else was the victim of her wrath. They blamed everything on them. So how can I turn around and feel bad for them? They knew who she was. They've known who she was for years. 10 plus years. They know exactly who she is, what she's capable of, the abuse she puts people through, and they sided with her very publicly, going very well out of their way, very well beyond the reasonable expectations of a healthy co-parenting relationship to side with her. So this is what you endorse. Enjoy. Anyway, you guys, that does it. A recap of what happened on part 1 of the Teen Mom OG reunion. But as usual, I want to know what you have to say. So please make sure to let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.